What is going on, everybody? Pandemic here, and Judge is again with me because it is time for our review. And the review we're doing today is Torchlight 2, the game we've been playing for the past 3 weeks. And we have come up with a list of our pros and cons, and we are going to share them.
Alright, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Alright, well, we'll start off with the pros. And I think the biggest selling point about this game is that it's so simple. I mean, I guess we're running into a theme here. We're playing all these simple games. But, I mean, it's a pretty easy game to get your head around. There's not a whole lot to it. Just for when you get started, the gameplay's pretty simple. I mean, it can get complicated when you get a lot of abilities, but it's pretty easy to get the hang of, and they gradually ease you into it, so...
Yeah, I agree. Whereas Realm of the Mad God, it still has that kind of point-and-click feel to it, but it has a more RPG intense feeling. Whereas it's not just worrying about the gear you have and the stats, it's worrying about how you place your points, because you can assign points and not just worry about, stats based on gear and ones that come naturally with a level up. You have to place them specifically according to your playstyle, your character, and also how you're playing. Like, say, with a mage or whatever, you can be fire, frost, or lightning. So you have to judge based on those things.
Yeah, well, and for people who haven't played this, it's basically the same thing as Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, where you have, or even World of Warcraft, where you have 3 different talent trees, and you can put points in according to what your playstyle is. So there's a wide variety of customization, and that's the second pro would be there's a lot of customization with the skills, because you don't have to stick with just one tree. Unlike World of Warcraft, where you have to progress through the tree, you can just pick one skill out of a tree all the way at the end if that's what you want when you finally unlock it, or a couple, like mismatch some fire with some ice. You can do whatever you want to fit your playstyle.
Mm-hmm. Which also is kind of leads into how the game is made. It's flashy as far as the spell effects and everything that goes along with that, character movements. But while it's flashy and still pretty graphically pleasing, it's not hardware intensive. Like, I have just a $350 laptop that I've been using for all my games, and this one runs on high settings without a hitch.
Yeah, well, it runs really well for me too, and I have a PC about the same as yours, and my computer can't run a lot of the newer games at high graphics, and this one I can run all the way up, and I get 30, 40 frames per second.
Yep. It's good stuff. I like when that happens.
Say about that.
Another pro for me is not just how the spells are flashy, but how there's a variety in scenery. You can be out in the open in a mountainous area or near some lakes or whatever, streams and whatnot, or you can be down in the crypts where it's like spiders everywhere and cobwebs, and then that can change into a scene of fire and explosions and whatnot. So it kind of, encompasses a lot of different things, and it's pleasing.
Yeah, well, I agree there. You didn't really get to see a lot of the zones that there are. There's a desert, a swamp, kind of a factory-looking place where there's all kinds of fire and lava, and there's a big variety of areas. Not to mention all the dungeons. A lot of them are different. There's like caves, and there's a bunch of different kinds of caves, and then there's castles and underground crypts, pyramids. So there's a huge variety of scenery, and it all looks really good.
Yes, it is. Even though, I mean, you've played it a lot more, so you have a lot more experience than I do, but even just from the little bit that I did see, I like it a lot. And so our next thing that I kind of feel, and I'm sure that you feel the same way, is that loot isn't shared, and there's a lot of it, unlike Realm of the Mad God, which, I mean, I don't want to compare the two games because they're completely different, but just that was the thing that pissed me off the most in that game, so it's a relief to have it so vastly different in this game.
Yeah, well, it's a lot different from any other game I've ever played, because usually it's either everyone can pick up the loot just free for all, or you have to roll for the loot like in World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to compare this game to World of Warcraft or Realm of the Mad God, because they're all different, but you don't have to roll for the loot. If a piece of loot drops, you just get to pick it up. It's yours.
Yeah.
You don't have to mess around with people trying to steal your shit. You can just take it, and that I like that a lot, because then you like in World of Warcraft, you find an item and then you go, oh, I really want that, and then you have to roll against 5 other people and lose, so it's a lot less disappointing.
It's also good because the loot that's dropped is not dependent on your class. You'll still get random items that anybody can use. So if it just so happens that someone that you're playing with gets a good piece of cloth gear and you need cloth gear, you can say, hey, well, I got this plate gear and we can trade for it. So it kind of adds a little bit of competitiveness, but there's still just so much loot that can be shared, but that's also your own in its own way, is a big plus in my opinion.
Yeah, and there is a lot of loot, like you said before. When I play this, I have to go and sell my inventory off, like my whole inventory, every 15 minutes or so, because you find so much stuff. Mm-hmm. So you make a lot of money. You have enough money to buy potions and enchant your gear. So there's not any... It's not like Realm of the Mad God where you find the same crap all the time that's not worth anything. You find all kinds of stuff, a huge variety of things.
Yeah, they're not very similar items. There is a large variety of items as far as just gear alone. For like a mage or an engineer in the chest slot, you could have 40 different types of armor just for one zone. That's probably overstating it a little bit, but there is a variety, and it's all dependent on your level, your zone, and your class.
Yeah, well, when you get into the higher levels, you get the class-specific unique items, which helps when you have a group. You can trade people for items you want, so that's definitely a bonus.
Mm-hmm. But, as every game has, there is the cons.
Yeah, well, this game, like every other game, has its cons, and this one has quite a few. Not all huge cons, but there are definitely problems, and I think one of the main problems is that the quests are repetitive. They just get so old. You do the same things over and over. It's always just go talk to this guy after killing this guy. Yes. Go to this dungeon and kill this boss, and then talk to this guy, and go to the next area, and then kill this guy.
Yes, and to add to that, another con would be that they haven't expanded it, so it's not like there's new content where they can vary the quests. What they did, apparently, to Torchlight 1 is they came out with a whole new game, Torchlight 2, and just kind of said it's a sequel. Well, I haven't played the first one, but I'm assuming that much hasn't changed. So it would be nice to have them release some sort of expansion or a little bit of extra, or maybe if they come out with the Torchlight 3 to see a change in the quests.
Yeah, definitely put some variety. Maybe some escort quests or finding a number of items or something. And that's another thing. There aren't really that many side quests. There's only like 1 or 2 in an area, and they're always the same. So there's not really much incentive to go and look around.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's like they have these big areas as far as the maps go when you're out in the main parts. Like when you go down into a dungeon, they're not necessarily that big, but the main areas are pretty large, but there's not a lot to them. Sure, there's hidden chests and things like that that can be searched for if you're feeling up to it, but there's no need. You don't have to, because again, we go back to the loot thing. you get sufficient loot that'll put you through the game, and the quests are just linear. You just walk to the point, go do what you gotta do, and then go on to the next one.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big problem for me. I mean, the quests just aren't really that satisfying when you have to do the same thing over and over. And another thing with the quests that's kind of annoying is that all the objectives are displayed on your map, which I guess is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because then you don't have to go look around. But then there's not really any reason to go look around because you know right where you have to go.
Yeah. And moreover, there's the aspect of the playability. There's a lot of playability as far as the man hours that you can put into it if you're willing, and provided the way each class can be played and how there's different classes to, go through. It kind of, on the other hand of that, though, upsets me that there's only 4 classes. I feel like they could have added a little bit more variety in that section as well.
Yeah, well, and this game is a pretty blatant copy of Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, and Diablo 2 has, don't quote me on this, but I know they have 6 or 7 classes, so it's beyond me why they didn't make a little bit more variety. I mean, there's not really a healing class, which is kind of confusing to me why there's not, since you take so much damage in the higher levels and higher difficulties.
Yeah, you seem pretty reliant on potions, but you also seem pretty reluctant to use them just in case. Because you never know when you're going to get your next potion in order to be able to heal. So if you just don't have any potions and you go into something, you start dying and you're like, oh shit, nothing's dropped a potion yet. It's not like your health regenerates very fast.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that is kind of annoying. I mean, I guess it's a good thing they have the potions, because then you have to be self-reliant, so while you're playing by yourself, you don't die, and everyone can heal. But I think that they should have had some kind of healing class, just because when you're taking so much damage, it's hard to do damage and to heal yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would have been wise to put in some kind of healing class, or even change one of the classes to give more healing abilities.
Definitely, especially if they, because they obviously have the multiplayer aspect to it. So if your intent was originally to have a multiplayer aspect to it, that kind of implies some kind of cooperative play. And cooperative play means that every character has a role, and not every situation is pure damage. I mean, if you're fighting a boss, say if your main guy that's taking damage is starting to die, he can't be just reliant on potions. You gotta let something give.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna mention this because I know from our other video people aren't watching the whole thing, and then they're commenting. There is a spell that allows you to heal every person in your party, but you have to find it, and it uses mana. So it is not a spell that everyone gets or one specific class. You have to find it first. Mm-hmm. And there are also spells that heal you that are self-heal, but they are not full heal. And most of them, as far as I know, other than the heal bot for the engineer, there's no class that just automatically heals you, or no spell that automatically heals you, other than the one that you can find.
I see. But yeah, even still, there's no dedicated healer. So
exactly,
if you were sitting there doing damage and your health starts to go down, you have to detract from the damage that you're dealing in order to maintain yourself. So that's putting you out of the fight. And say if everybody gets hit really hard all at the same time, then that reduces the global damage that's being done at that given moment.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there. And I think my final con, personally, because I played the whole game through, is that the ending is just crap. I mean, it's not very good. It's kind of just like, oh, you beat the final boss, now you can go play the game over, or just do dungeons over and over. That's it.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's not like there's any cutscene style, like any cinematics. It's just there actually are. There are, but it's like the opening video.
it's like a little cartoon, and it's only like a minute or two long.
Oh, I see. But there's not one at the end that kind of like...
There is, but it's not really... It's just kind of, oh, the bad guy's dead.
Oh. So it kind of leaves you saying, well, yeah, the guy's dead, but there's probably still something else that's going to happen.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
we're not
they did...
sure. So there's no really any resolution to the conflict.
Yeah, they don't really do a great job of wrapping it up, and I mean, they don't even like leave it as a cliffhanger, really. I guess a little bit they do, but it's just not a great ending in my opinion. It's not very climactic at all. So it just kind of, oh, you killed the final boss, now you're done.
I see. I'll take your word for it. So, for the end-all be-all, we will give this game a rating as usual, and we have agreed upon the rating of a 7.5 out of 10. For the fact that it is fun, it is flashy, yet not graphic intensive, but there are their fair share of cons. Now, we gave Realm of the Mad God a 6 out of 10 because of the overwhelming amount of cons compared to the pros. And because this game just had a much nicer, both physical eye appeal to it, as far as the graphics and everything like that, as well as the variety, it deserved to be higher up on the list.
Yep, I definitely have to agree with that. This game, I mean, they're not the same game at all, but this game definitely excels a little more. There's more to it, and they have, I mean, it has problems, but they definitely thought it out a little bit more. So I think it deserves a higher score.
Yeah. I mean, it's not wrong to compare RPG-style games, and I feel that if you're going to make a successful RPG that someone's going to pay for, it's definitely got to be a lot better.
Oh, yeah,
Not as compared to this game, because obviously we paid for it, and it was fun, so there was a lot of playability to it, and I don't regret my decision by any means. So it gets that medium-high rating in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree.
But, anyways, that's the end. Thanks for watching. If you actually are at the end of this video, please leave feedback, whether it is positive or negative. Any amount is appreciated. And be sensible. Don't comment about stuff that we covered in a nonsensical manner. Thank you, and peace.
Peace.